to A Well-Designed Business. My name is Luann Nigara, and I'm so glad you found this podcast. Together with my husband Vince and our partner Bill, we have grown our company WindowWorks from the ground up. So I know and I understand the challenges you face in running your interior design business. I also know that your talent alone isn't enough to ensure your success. So on this podcast, we talk about strategies and practical steps to help you grow your business. But make no mistake about it, we have our share of fun here too, mixed in with those aha moments that I love so much. This isn't fluff. Nobody has time for that. Whether you are a new interior designer or a seasoned designer, I am here to help you create and to manage the kind of interior design firm that you dream of. It's straight talk and it's action. Are you ready? Let's get started. Hi, welcome to A Well-Designed Business. Our favorite friend is back, Vita, for WTF, Window Treatment Friday. We have a lot of ground to cover today in this show, but I have a couple of upcoming opportunities that I want to share with you before we start talking with Vita. All right. Exciting Windows, which you may have heard by now that Vin, Bill, and myself are now the majority owners, is hosting a conference in New Jersey on October 5th, 6th, and 7th. That's this October 5th, 6th, and 7th, 2021. And this conference is called the CEO Conference because in this conference, it's an annual conference every fall, we cover everything the CEO needs to know. So in this particular conference, we're covering managing for profit, marketing strategies for every business model, creating a paperless workflow system, preparing for normalcy, right? At some point, COVID is going to subside and business is going to look differently, okay? Succession planning. Now, the speakers will include Vin, myself, Vita, Nicole Heimer, Steve Burston, and Dan Anheuser. The first day is open to anyone. So you can come, you can join, you can be there, you can take part in all the activities. And the final 2 days are exclusive to Exciting Windows members only. This is when we get real and we talk numbers and we really share. So, of course, you can join Exciting Windows, but you're welcome to come as our guest. To learn more and to register for the event, you can go to excitingwindows.com/CEO guest. Okay, excitingwindows.com/CEO guest. It will also be in the show notes. Now, and because Vita is just as crazy pants as I am when it comes to being busy, Vita is teaching a Luann University course that is going to kick off October 28th, 2021. She'll be teaching how to scale your window treatment business to your first $1 million year. And you can get the details on this course by going to luannuniversity.com. All right. Today's conversation with Vita will be of help to anyone with a business whose process includes creating estimates, purchase orders, work orders, all of that. It is an overview of Vita's foundational system that has allowed her to scale her own window treatment business. Okay. So I told you there's a lot to cover, but don't worry. All of the events are included in the show notes. And just to remind you, all the podcast show notes can always be found at luannnigara.com. All right. So let's get to this conversation with Vita. We're talking systems, her superpower, but not just any systems, digital systems that will help you quit wasting time so you can come up for air, get your business and your personal life back on track, and give you the space to think about scaling. Hi, Vita. Thanks so much for joining me on WTF. It's been a long time.
Hello, Luann. Thank you for having me back. It's always an honor. It's always a pleasure. I love being here with you. And do you realize this is our 17th episode together?
That's crazy,
17th.
right?
I know. It's been a few years. Yes.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's awesome. And of course, our not only our designer colleagues have given us both great feedback that they learn from these episodes, but particularly our window treatment colleagues have often, I know, reached out to both of us. So it's fun doing it. And I have to say, today's episode, I'm very much looking forward to, and I want to share with you why. So you did you have your new Lou University course, which you started teaching in the winter of 2021. And
Mm-hmm.
what it is scaling your window treatment business to your first million. And
Mm-hmm.
what I'm so excited about this is because between observing the content in your course, having those multiple conversations with you about your what you were going to put into the course, and
Mm-hmm.
then the feedback of the
Mm-hmm.
people who took it, I was
Mm-hmm.
like, this applies to my business, which is at 3 million, and we are striving for 5 million. And I was just, and so we're loosely thinking about changing the name of the course, of course, but right now in real time, it still has that name. But the
Yeah.
thing is, you are really pretty much a paperless operation, and WindowWorks is very far from being paperless. We're highly systemized, but very far from being paperless. And I know that in Exciting Windows, you know that now Vinny and Billy and I are the majority partners of Exciting Windows,
Of
and
course.
a lot of Exciting Windows members want to know how to run a paperless business because, of course, they're younger than us. And
Well,
so,
go ahead.
no, no. So anyway, so this is exciting to me. And so we did a show talking about what the course was about, but now we're actually going to take some of the things that you teach in the course and run through them, so that if anybody doesn't want to do the course, we know how it is always on the show. We give you the information. If you want to figure out how to DIY it, we hopefully our goal is always to give you something that you can literally do it yourself. And then if you're like me and you'd rather just pay somebody to do it for you or teach you how to do it, well, then we're here for you on that as well, right?
Yeah, and what is really interesting for me today, Luann, is yes, it is the information that we're going to present today is super great and really great, juicy tidbits and strategies on how to organize your window treatment business. And a lot of it, or actually pretty much all of it, is taken from the scaling class that, like you said, I taught back in the winter, spring. But the a lot of the reasons why the students came to this class, some of it was, yes, they wanted to scale, but a lot of those reasons had to do with something entirely different, or at least that's what they thought was different in their head.
Mm.
And those reasons really mostly had to do with how to get organized, how to get more time, how to become less overwhelmed by doing all the things and wearing all the hats. A lot of them were exhausted. I'll get on the class. We're like, hey, how are you guys doing? Da, da, da. And we're like, oh my gosh, I'm exhausted. I just went to 3 appointments. I had 500 estimates to do. I have this, I have that, da, 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 da. And I mean, there's only like 2 hours left in the day.
Yes.
So, it's just being exhausted, being kind of resentful sometimes of our own success, frazzled by all the things we had to do. So it became very clear to me that before we can even start talking and thinking about taking our business to the next level, we really need to clean up what we have right now.
You,
And
you're
and
so
so
true with that. You're
Mhm.
so true with that. It's almost like, you know what it is? What you are teaching people to do, because this is what you do so well. But it reminds me of the times when, for years, Friday was my dialing for dollars day. So every
Mhm.
Friday, like I would do estimates all week long, do measures, blah blah blah, get as many quotes and things out on the street all week long. But Friday was cleanup day. It was the day to get all the things done that didn't get done, and also the day to do all the callbacks for all the things that I did get done, right? But
Mhm.
it was so crazy. On Friday, it was like I had to spend, whether it was 10 minutes or an hour, depending on what that week was like, getting
Mhm.
my desk organized before I could
Mhm.
work. It was like,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? And that's what this is like. It's
Sure.
like getting your business organized so
Right.
that you can not only just manage it and run it, but you can have the headspace. And to your point, the the happiness, like the feeling of I even want to grow this a little bit more, right? Because
Yeah.
sometimes we're just like, yeah, this is enough.
And that's, one of the students who came into the class. I mean, her revenue were well on pace to be over $1 million. So getting the revenue level wasn't an issue for her. But what she shared with us was that, yes, she is able to produce that type of revenue, but in the process, she is burning herself to the ground
Right.
essentially, and her staff as well. And she's feeling the exhaustion, the resentment, the being frazzled and confused, all of those things. She just felt so disorganized. It's like she didn't have her back end in order, even though the revenue was coming in. So if we were to take it up a notch and kind of talk in more sort of coachy love terminology, it's like her business was experiencing the abundance, but she herself, like on the personal level, she was still stuck in that lack mentality
Mm,
because because her systems weren't in place, her processes weren't developed. Everything was just kind of done haphazardly by the seat of her pants because she was just trying to keep up with demand. And again, not to the fault of hers by any means, is just she was faced with increased demand. She was faced with a lot of customers coming in, and she just did the best that she could. And I commend her on putting a pause on that, or at least saying, wait a second, I need to put a break here somewhere, because if I keep going like this, I mean, I will, it just leads to complete burnout and disaster. So yeah, before we can start talking about even 1 million, 2 million, 5 million, I mean, even the listeners listening to us, you guys, even if you're at 100,000,
right.
300,000, 500,000, if you don't feel that you have your foundation in order, if there are cracks in your foundation, then getting to 1 million, even though it's possible, but it makes it so much painful to
Right.
be there.
Right. Well, I have to say, since Vin and Bill and I have joined the partnership team at Exciting Windows in the winter of 2021, we've had like about 8 or 9 new window treatment retailers join Exciting Windows. And Vinny is the one
Congrats,
is,
that's awesome.
yes, it's awesome. It's terrific. And
Hmm.
Vinny is the point person for that, right? So if somebody
Hmm.
says, hey, I'm interested in Exciting Windows, typically they have the conversation with him about what it is that we do and the value that we offer and what is it like to be
Hmm.
a member and yada yada. And literally, I would say almost to a one, the number one thing that he's hearing is,
Hmm.
look, I know how to do it. I like my
Hmm.
business. The phone is ringing, but I
Hmm.
feel like I'm running around chasing my tail. Like it's
Yeah.
just, how do I get it systemized so that I can execute it with confidence that, I'm going to do a really great project for, Sally Smith and a really great project for Jenny Jones. You know what I mean? Because it needs to be done the same way. And of course, we are so process driven at WindowWorks that it's helpful that when you have that conversation with Vinny, and then of course the rest of the colleagues in Exciting Windows also. But what I love is that you're this next generation. It's this digital process driven, which is something that we have been slowly learning. So yeah, so the reason,
And I would even add, just real quick tangent there, that not only do we absolutely want to do the same way from Sally Smith to
Jenny
Customer
Jones,
Jones,
yeah,
Janie, just thank you. um, we also want to feel like human beings in the process.
yes,
We don't want to be working 12, 14, 16-hour days. We want to have some walks and listen to nature, if that's what
right.
gets you going, or go to the gym, whatever personal time you have, to have family time. We want to put that into, in addition to running a an efficient, productive, scalable business. So I want to make sure that we have that human component kind of in the background, in the context of this conversation as well.
Right, absolutely. So the thing is, you have several strategies that you employ yourself, Vita, with great success, and that you encourage us to adopt if we want to try and step out of this overwhelm and this exhaustion and this, frazzled state of mind. And one of the
Hmm.
first things that you recommend is that we have to automate our estimates and we have to connect the flow from estimate to PO to work order to installation. So run
Yeah.
that through a little bit for us. What does that mean for you?
Yeah. So this goes under the umbrella of automate your information and also enter that information only once.
Mm.
So the problem that I'm finding, in whether talking to my students while teaching the class, or also a lot of window treatment pros, experts, have been reaching out to me for just ad hoc advice or email, or just wanted to say hello and compliment us on the great podcast. So a lot of problems and pain points that I am seeing under this umbrella is that they're saying it takes just a lot of time for them to figure out an estimate. And then the designer or the client changes a spec, whether it's trim or fabric or whatever else, and then they have to redo the entire thing. And then even once the estimate is finalized, which could take, as we know, 1, 2, 5, 15, 20, whatever iterations, then they retype that information into QuickBooks. And then they retype some of that information to create a PO to send to the customer. And then they find some other manual or repetitive way of communicating that information to the workroom. And then there's another, yet another manual or repetitive way to communicate some of that information to the installer. So what happens, the main problem here that I'm seeing is that the same set of information gets re-entered or repeated several times, whereas it really doesn't have to be. So the first main strategy is I want us to look at the information that we put together, starting with the estimate, and then use that file as a basis for communication down the line. And so here's what I specifically mean by that. Number one is that your estimates should be done in templates. So if you guys are still using a pen and paper, and if there's a calculator somewhere there to figure out the yardage, that needs to stop, please. I'm begging you.
Wow.
Because that is just not efficient use of your time. So there are many programs out there. I use Excel. There's Access. I'm sure Apple has some kind of a numbers type of program. Essentially, the idea is to put all of your estimates into a program that is able to produce formulas. Okay, and those formulas then spit out the yardages and the labor prices that you need, so that you never have to re-input it several times. Some people I know have been able to appropriate QuickBooks for that very purpose. So you can actually create line items in QuickBooks that have a specific, say, labor price and have a specific yardage. And so you don't have to figure this out yourself. The idea here is for me to tell you that A, it's possible to do, and B, it is absolutely imperative that you do it if you wanted to save time, if you wanted to use your time more efficiently, be more productive. So like I said, we use Excel. It's something I'm just personally very familiar with Excel, but I want to be careful to not turn this episode into me advocating for a specific software or specific app. What I'm advocating for here is that you use technology. So everything is technology based. So put away the calculator, find a software, technology piece that you like. Find someone who can program it for you and create formulas so that when you put in an estimate and then revise it for 57th time, you don't have to start from scratch. So, for example, at this point, what we do is, let's say it went from 1 width to 2 widths and a band. So it's literally maybe 5 or 6 keystrokes that we put in, and right away, Luann, we get new labor, new yardage for trim and for lining and for the fabric. We get a new total, new subtotal, and then the new whatchamacallit, the deposit. So all of that is just, it's formula based, it's automatic. We don't have to refactor, recalculate it 100 times.
I can't even fathom that. That's like, I want
know
that.
You were so quiet for a second. I'm like, Luann, are you still there?
No. I am, because I'm just imagining the machinations that we go through like you said, like if you're still doing it with pen and paper and a calculator, yes, ma'am, we are. And so, all right. So I'm not going to, here's the thing. If I start asking you now how to set up any of these, like you said, it can be done in any multiple programs. So that's like,
exactly.
Go outside. Like if you need an Excel person to help you, look, I know I could call my daughter Beth. She would be like, she does, she's a VP at Fox, and she's a VP at Fox Finance. And so if I said, I need this to do all this stuff, she would be able to figure it out. So there's ways to get help in doing that. The idea is seeing the value in not having to do just that exact visual of pen, paper, and calculator. All right.
Exactly.
So, and
And
understanding there's a way. Like I would have thought, how could I do that? I would be like, well, do they know really? Can they really figure out how many yards of trim and I would be like, oh, that calculated, but I have to check it.
right, right, right.
So it's just
Yeah,
the
so it's
trust in knowing that you can set it up and take it as a possibility and open your mind to it is really what
and
I'm saying.
that is exactly 100% correct, Luann. I'm telling you that it's possible. I've been using Excel spreadsheets ever since I started. So I've been in business for close to 16 years. And once I realized how math driven window treatments were, I mean, who would have thunk? But of course, we all know that they are.
Yes.
As soon as I realized that, I started relying on something that I know. It happens to be Excel. Like I said, it doesn't have to be for you guys. There are other programs out there, and a lot of people also use QuickBooks, like I said. So the idea is that get out of the manual entry of the estimates, find a program that you like, find someone who can, with your knowledge of window treatments, find a techie who can figure out how to set it up.
I
Okay,
love
so
it.
that's number one. Number two, as a direct result of number one, is this. At Vitalia Inc., we go to great lengths to make sure that our detailed estimate is as detailed as it possibly gets. So let's say it's a pair of drapes. It says what kind of drape it is and what kind of pleat and how many pleats and what kind of fullness and what kind of trim and how many yards of lining and what kind of double hem here and double hem there and how it's going to be installed, meaning is it going to the sill, is it clearing the window by this much, how many brackets we're going to use. It has a little table with all of the hardware already figured out and included, and with item numbers and finishes. Everything, every single detail, Luann, is spelled out. The reason we do that is so that, number one, the customer knows exactly what they're getting and there is no questions. There are no questions later on that are like, oh, I thought it was going to come into the window by 10 inches, but I see that it's coming in by 3 inches. Yep, yes, ma'am, it says so on your estimate.
Mm.
Um, that's number one, to make sure that we communicate extremely clearly, we set expectations extremely clearly with our customer. Number two is we take this spreadsheet, we take out the pricing, we add one or two additional details, and this very file is now called a work order, or we happen to call it a production order, but essentially what it means is that it goes directly to our sewing table, and that's what our seamster is working off of.
Mm.
So he knows that this is a functional drape, and it's two pairs, and the trim goes here, and the trim is 1 inch off the leading edge, and this hem needs to be 2-inch double, and this hem needs to be 6-inch something else. So he knows all of that stuff. He also knows that he cannot make, let's say, more than 6 pleats, because he can see that we're only ordering 6 rings,
Mm.
because the table for the hardware is also part of that work order.
Wow.
Okay, so we don't retype any of that information. We don't take another workroom's a template and fill it out, even though we do use other workrooms sometimes. We use our templates that we have created for estimates and convert that file that is called an estimate. We make a few very quick changes and we call it a production order, and that is exactly what's going onto the sewing table. Next, we take the hardware information, and like I said, it's a little table, so it's got finials, brackets, poles. What am I missing? Rings,
Rings. Right.
right? And
Right.
maybe there's some other accessories there, elbows,
Wands and stuff. Yeah.
connectors, wands, da, da. All of that is spelled out in the estimate as well, Luann. So we take that, we copy and paste it into a blank template that is called hardware purchase order.
Hmm.
We save it under hardware purchase order customer Jones, and that's what we send over to the vendor. So again, there's no retyping. Do you see how
Yes.
it's the initial information that is well detailed and complete. That is important. We do work on making sure that that initial set of information is complete. And now we've converted it to a production order. We've converted it to a purchase order. And then what we also do is we take the production order, we attach it to our installer's calendar. And by looking at it even prior to going to the installation and during the installation, he knows exactly what he's installing. He sees that it's a pair of drapes. He sees that it needs to have 6 rings. He sees, let's say, that it's 200 and some inches, therefore he needs high ladder. He sees the address of the customer, so he knows where to go, even though that's actually in the calendar entry as well. And whatever, he sees that it needs to come into the window by 3 inches. It needs to clear the window by, let's say, 9 inches. So he sees all of that information, and we don't have to repeatedly tell him that or answer his questions.
Like you always blow my mind. You really do. And I have to say that I can see as you're going to layer these things on, then you're going to take this probably to your finance management, because now you can see
Yes.
what the costs are on every project, and there's no like, oh, did we order 14 rings on that job? Like, it's all right there. Okay.
Exactly.
But what it is it is a commitment, like almost everything else. Like you were mentioning earlier that you commend the one woman in who took the Lou University class with you for, even though she's hitting that $1 million mark, to stopping the train and saying, okay, let me rejigger this, let me refocus, and let me get some systems in place. It's that same thing. It's like, literally, I'm visualizing, okay, so until we get up and running doing this, it's probably going to take 2 or 3 times the amount of time to do the estimate compared to the way we're doing it shorthand now with pen and paper and calculator. But once you get it down, then you can see how it will not only streamline your salesperson's time, or you if you're the solopreneur and the salesperson as well, in the estimate process, but especially if you're the business owner, it's streamlining you all the way through. I mean, I can just imagine insisting that my 3 salespeople make these estimates to this level of detail. And right now I can see all 3 of their faces. You're out of your mind. I have to do 12 estimates in the next 2 days, not happening. Yeah. But you can see that if you it's just like we say with everything else, stop, pay attention, do it once. It's like that teach a man to fish or give him a fish dinner, right? It's like, let's teach you how to do this so that it earns you and buys you time later. So good. I mean, it's a little intimidating, Vita, I have to say, but knowing that it's possible, and then really seeing the benefit all the way through of, like, because I have to say, just like literally having done thousands of window treatment sales over these years. When I think about when the deposit finally comes and it's time to do the work order, I'm duplicating those efforts all over again. I'm now pulling out all those notes. I'm saying, okay, how many widths did I say? Oh, are there special considerations for the hem here? And then, God forbid, placing the order for the hardware. That I'm allergic to. I just hate doing it. I constantly leave a bracket off or something. And it got to the point very early on with Kim. I'd be like, you're in charge of all hardware. Like, get me out of this
she
loop.
loves it.
You know, but having the, just really developing the strength, the fortitude to just doing it really well, right, one time, and then probably just feeling the dividends and the benefits that earned you over the course of the life of an order is got to be like dramatically transformative.
And I see what you're saying, Luann. It's difficult to stop the train, right? Especially if it's a freight train that is going at 100 miles an hour and it takes forever for it to stop, right? You can't just come to like a complete stop from 100 to 0. It is definitely challenging. And I see how our friends listening to this are probably like, yeah, that all sounds great, but let's address the big elephant in the room. I'm running around like a
Mm-hmm.
maniac
Mm-hmm.
trying to satisfy all of my clients and potential clients, prospects, and I'm answering phone calls and emails and texts and DMs and PMs and all that kind of stuff. Like, how am I possibly going to figure this out? I don't know Excel. I don't know QuickBooks well enough to reprogram it. It's a big project. I don't have time. Then she gets frustrated, or he, and then puts it on the back burner and just keeps doing what she's doing with pen and paper, say, or maybe there's a little bit of technology involved there, but maybe to the level that it can be. So
Mm-hmm.
I guess what I'm saying here is I am recognizing that this is not a small problem, and it's not something that I just want to shove under the rug and say, oh, isn't this wonderful, let's create Excel spreadsheets together, it's going to save your life. I completely understand and recognize how difficult it is to stop what you've been doing, to change your habits. And if it's one person, it's just changing your habits. For you, Luann, at WindowWorks, it is a cultural
Yes,
change.
it
And
is.
that is a lot more difficult than for a single person to
Mm-hmm.
change.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you guys listening to us that are like a single window treatment specialist, or maybe you have an assistant, versus if you are a bigger operation like WindowWorks, there are similar plot problems, but also different in the way, in the scope of how big, I think bigger yours is by comparison to like a
Yes.
single person. So yes, so that I don't want that to be overlooked, and I definitely recognize it. And the thing of it is that we all are saying, how do I get more time? How do I get more time? And I think we all know this to be true, that you have 24 hours in the day and there's no way you get more time. The only way to have more time is to create more time. So until you stop the train, until you make the decision to make a change in anything that you do, then no change will actually happen in your business. Oh my gosh, you got me reminded of Amber's no change, no change, right? There it is.
Amber de la Garza, right? She coaches both
Right.
of us. Could you imagine Vita actually goes to a productivity specialist to be coached? Isn't that bizarre? That's bizarre to me.
Oh, she gave me so many incredible tips and strategies, and no, yeah, love her. Anyway, so um, what usually, the way I usually like to think of making a big change is that I realize that going through change is uncomfortable. And so it becomes for me a question of, am I willing to go through the temporary discomfort so that it leads to a long-term gain?
Yeah.
Or am I willing to live with the temporary discomfort, or rather, I'm sorry,
Right.
am I
Long
willing
term.
to live with the temporary comfort
Yes.
of doing things the way I've been doing and just, humming and drumming along, but knowing that in the long run, it is a perpetual discomfort.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the song that the mantra that I have in my head, that that tells me that something is worth stopping myself and investing time and energy and bandwidth into making a change, or if it doesn't. So you guys listening, if you're not experiencing multiple changes in your estimates, if you provide somebody with an estimate and maybe there is one small revision and that's it, and you're like, I don't know what the problem is, or if you don't mind filling out somebody else's template, you're like, yep, that's fine, I'm good to go, then there is no problem, right? There's absolutely no problem. But if you're just like a lot of the students that came to my class, and I bet you the reason you're listening to this when you saw the title, How to Get and Stay Organized in Your Window Treatment Business, if you are trying to get and stay organized, this is one of the major strategies that will put you on the right course.
It's interesting because one of my chairman of the board clients, Peggy Morgans, she took your class. And
Peggy.
yeah, Peggy is outstanding. And Peggy is, she not only had pretty good systems in place when we started working together, but in the last almost 2 years now has dramatically improved her systems and processes. And mostly what it was is, after having a business about 18 to 20 years when I met her, it was documenting her systems and processes. That's what it was. It was sort of, she really has a great analytical mind, and she approaches things in a systematic way, but it was flexing the muscle of actually finally documenting it. And what happened was, it was the point was so that she could move into a thought where she might have a saleable business as she thinks about retirement. And also in the interim, she's needed to scale only for a couple of reasons. She started to get better at what she was doing, so she was able to take more work, and then she needed more seamstresses. But also then the year later, it was the COVID that created the big order, crush of orders and so forth. But the thing is I not only know, like, I keep getting enticed by this. So I feel like I'm a window treatment person out there, like Peggy, like so many of our colleagues, like this woman that you keep mentioning from the class, that I'm like, I need some of that, because I listen to Peggy's reflections in our sessions. And this one point was one of the things that intrigued her and impressed her the most, was this: create the estimate once. Create it once with such attention to detail that it becomes the document that goes all the way to the closure of the project, like you said, with the installer. And then I know in our process at WindowWorks, once everything is done, product has been delivered, installer is done, showroom has signed off on it, then Vinny is going to take one final look at the order and analyze the gross profit on the order, because he tracks that. And if salespeople are performing in the range that we've set for them, we're great. But if he keeps seeing 2 or 3 or 4 projects here and there every week or every month that are below gross profit margins, then we talk about it in our sales meeting, and we're like, hey, what's happening here? And sometimes we find out it's because there were mistakes, right? So it could be a mistake in ordering that affects the gross profit margin. There could be an installer might have made a mistake and that it did require 2 trips, different things. But the idea is that you're creating, like, he has to sometimes go to 4 or 5 different places to gather that gross profit margin. The net cost of the project, so that he can analyze what the net and the gross profit is. But when I think about the value of this in, like you said, first of all, you create an estimate, and then a second later, oh, never mind, I'm not going to have trim. Oh, never mind, we're going to make it a Roman shade instead of a drape. Oh, never mind, we want to do it with lining. You're just like, oh, never mind, I'm done. I don't want to do it anymore. I don't want to play. Right? And so being able to just stick that into an Excel or a numbers template where I can just alter it just sounds like a dream. But then, to your point, now I'm just going to copy and paste my work order for ordering the hardware. Then I'm going to give my workroom the work order for fabrication. Then I'm going to put it into my whatever, if I'm using QuickBooks or whatever management system I'm using for finance, to spit out the costs. And and then also I forgot the step of the installer there, because we are it's funny, because I think if you're a designer listening, maybe you underestimate the things that the person that you're working with for window treatments needs to supply the installer. If you're a window treatment person, you're not underestimating it at all. But how high, it's like you said, how high the rod goes, how wide past the thing, because so often, we have a 45-inch wide window and we might order a 6-foot pole because that might be the smallest increment that the pole comes in. But if I don't tell Billy, actually install that 6-foot pole on the 45-inch window and have the drape stacked on each side, how does he know he's not cutting it down to 50 inches for a 45-inch window?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And he would be calling and be like, Luann, what am I doing? And you may be in the meeting and you can't answer the call. And he's standing there in front of this window and be like, okay, what am I supposed to do? I don't want to cut it if she didn't want me to cut it. But you're not getting back to him for hours on end. And what is he supposed to do with his time? Right.
And the thing is, because, again, if you don't know the nuances of window treatments, you don't realize. So you might have a single pair of panels that is one with each panel. So we're ordering that at 36 inches wide plus returns. right? Now, the installer, think about an installer. He gets to a window, he's got a 45-inch window molding to molding, he has a 36-inch wide pair of panels, and he has a 60-inch rod. Like, literally. You know what I mean? You're just like, seriously, what happened here? But when you know
Yeah.
what the plan is, it completely makes sense. It's like the rod goes up at 60. We've got, what do we have? 15 inches. So we have 8 inches on each side. We have an 18-inch panel, an 18-inch panel, 8 inches on the wall, 10 inches on the glass. It all makes perfect sense. Now, with me and Kim, we're so lucky because Billy has done all of our installations for
Yeah.
our whole lives. So
Yeah.
he can read the silliness and really make a good judgment call. But when your installer is an installer that maybe you hire and he or she, as an installer, works for multiple firms, like they
Yeah.
don't know what the hell you want. They just
Yeah.
don't. And
Of course.
nor should they assume. That's the other thing, right? So
Or absolutely being, assuming it makes an ass out of you and me, right? That's how it goes. Yeah. Yeah. So having centralized information from and complete and detailed information from the very beginning is really key to productivity because it eliminates a lot of back and forth, a lot of questions, a lot of confusion. And most importantly, it saves you time for not having to re-enter it.
yeah.
Now, the next small step after that or in conjunction is that you keep all of these files on a cloud-based drive. So be
Mm.
that Google Drive, OneDrive, again, Apple, I'm sure has something. I'm a PC based, but there's plenty of cloud-based drives out there. And my point here, it should not be done on paper, and that paper should not be kept in the filing drawer
Mm.
because, as we know, fires happen, and those filing drawers
God
can
forbid.
burn.
Poor thing.
But most importantly, it's because all of your team members can have access to that information.
Right.
And by all of the team members, here's how it can actually be really great for you guys. So let's say it's you and your assistant, right? So you don't have to go back and forth if you wanted to work from home, if you wanted to open up your computer on vacation, you always have access to that file. Now, let's take your bookkeeper. My bookkeeper is virtual. She happens to be local to me, but she never comes into the office because she doesn't need to. Our
Mm.
QuickBooks is cloud-based, but most importantly, all of our files, these customer files are all cloud-based. So she has access to them at all times. And you know what else is great? My marketing coordinator has access to those files too. And you may be like, Vita, why do you need your marketing coordinator to have access to your estimates? Well, I'll tell you why. Because when she decides what picture to put on Instagram, and it's a beautiful pair of drapes with trim, and it's a 45-inch window on a rod, and it's stacked all perfectly, her question to me would be like, well, what hardware was it used? Who should I tag?
Mm.
What fabric was used? Who should I tag? And what
Whoa.
was the designer that you guys did it with? Whom should I tag?
Whoa.
And
You
guess
just
what?
blew my mind.
I To answer any of those questions, she goes into OneDrive, she pulls up the file, all of that information is there, boom, 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 done. Out goes the Instagram post
That's
without
that's
me
good.
even knowing it.
That's huge because I can tell you that we've had times, rarely, but there's been times when I've opened up the WindowWorks Instagram and actually I should say it's more likely Kim will open it and she will Voxer me and she'll be like, that post is a designer and we didn't tag the designer. That's not our personal work. We did the work, you know what I mean? But it's not
Mhm.
our work to claim. And then we're like in this
Mhm.
train going, somebody find the social
Mhm.
person, get the thing, blah, 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 blah. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Or to the other point, not being able to leverage the fact that maybe we used Kirsch Drapery hardware or we used a Cravat fabric or we used something from our 38 East collection and not being able to leverage and tag that because, our social person is just finding a great picture in our
Yep.
Dropbox and talking about
Mhm.
it.
That's
Love
right.
it. Oh my
There were
goodness.
so many times specifically I can tell you where she had tagged Samuel and Sons trim, and which is a wonderful company for trimmings, in case anybody doesn't know, and they're very active on Instagram. Well, I can tell you, all of a sudden the followers go up by like 10, 20, 25, 30 in one day. I'm like, what's happening? What's going on? What
Wow.
did I do? I didn't speak anywhere. Like, what's going on?
Yes.
And then I look at the last post, and sure enough, it's a Samuels and Sons trim that we used on a certain drape in a certain project. We tagged them, which is what we want to do as decent human beings anyway.
Right.
But yes, there's a little bit of that extra benefit of, leveraging your
Wow.
resources and getting extra eyeballs on what you're trying to put out there into the universe.
I love it. I love it. I have to say, Vita, there's so much here. And, not only, is there lots more of information about actually stopping the big train and getting into this, automation with the estimates. But, when you go on and you do, job descriptions and getting clear and customer folders and batching your tasks and all these things. There's a lot more that goes into it. And I would say we're going to dig it apart in future podcast episodes because as I said, I fully believe give it all away. If you want to hire to learn it, great, but we're going to give it all away. So we'll continue this conversation where we go further into the things that you can do in order to really, just drive efficiency through every part of your business. But in the meantime, you are going to be part of the Exciting Windows Conference that we have coming October 5th, 6th, and 7th. And you are going to do this as a full-on presentation. And we are doing a little Zoom presentation on September 10th. That is a free presentation with Exciting Windows where you're going to be there. Nicole Heimer is going to be there. We have some other speakers that are going to be there. And that'll be like a little teaser. So if you want to come to that Zoom meeting, maybe ask Vita a question. If you don't, if you're not really wanting to come to the Exciting Windows conference, but you want to meet Vita and ask her a question, that free Zoom meeting is the place to do that. And then, of course, for our Exciting Windows conference, it's a 3-day conference. As a non-member, we allow you to join us for the first day and a half, and Vita is in that first day. The second day and a half are proprietary because we get down and we talk about our numbers and we really get into each other's businesses and pull back the curtain not just on how we do something, but how successful we are or where we're struggling. And so that's private. But you're welcome to join Exciting Windows too. So, all right. So all of that information will be in the show notes so that you can come to the free Zoom event on September 10th, or you have the information for the live conference in October. It's going to be here in New Jersey. We're having it at the same hotel that we had the first Luann Live in. So that's sort of a fun little, deja vu-y thing for me. And
Nice.
Exciting Windows Conference is a small event by scale compared to what we're normally thinking. There might be 50 or 60 people at this. So it's a lot of one-on-one time, a lot of hands-on time, a lot of breakout sessions, lots of having a conversation, having a speaker give a presentation, then followed up by breaking up the 50 or 40 people into 3 and 4 and 5 groups to then talk about how we can implement it. It's a very different, it's a very low-key, but very intense. We went to our very first Exciting Windows conference as a guest 4.5, it'll be 5 years ago, and we decided to join on the spot because we were just like, oh, we can't get this anywhere else. So all of it's in the show notes. But Vita, I have to say, truly, every time I talk to you in real life and on the podcast, my admiration and respect for you grows exponentially on the way your brain works and the way you intentionally continue to improve, reassess, iterate, all the verbs there on making systems better.
Oh, Luann, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Right back at you. Our brains work very differently, and I think that's why we work so well together. And this is why it's been a few years, and this is episode 17 of the Window Treatment Friday. But really, equal amount of respect, admiration, aspiration towards you, my love.
Thank you. And then, of course, we'll put in the show notes about the WTF episodes that Kim and Vita are doing live on Facebook and Instagram every Friday, 9 o'clock in the morning Eastern time. That's been going over a year. And that is a lot of also technical information, product information. So whether you're a designer or a window treatment person, there's always something there to just like up level your awareness of the possibilities, more product driven than this is because it's a visual platform. So Vita, thank you so much for being with us today. I really appreciate it.
Oh gosh, thank you so much. Thanks, Luann. Really appreciate the opportunity, always.
Makes a lot of sense, right? But nobody's saying it's easy, right? If we want to adopt Vita's ultra practical, time-saving digital system, it's going to take some serious work on our part. And like Vita said, we're already stretched so thin. It seems like this kind of, pivot would drive us deeper into overwhelm instead of helping us step out of it. I know, right? Because don't you wish you would have said, I know you're drowning in a mess of orders, revisions, customer communications, vendors, and installer, problems. Well, $30 a month and a push of a button, we can make it go away. I would buy that. I would buy it for $1,000 a month, right? Look, us window treatment pros, we don't have a My Doma studio like you designers do. Vita basically built her own process and systems because there is no platform for us like My Doma studio. But we can see the value of it, can't we? I can't tell you how many times I've said to Sarah Daniele, could I use My Doma studio for window works? And she's like, not quite, right? So we have to do the hard work to set up the strong foundation and to train our team on a digital workflow. Because if we do, we will eventually win back our time and the money that we invested, because we will be able to say bye-bye to disorganization, bye-bye to burnout, all right? But we have to commit. You have to be okay with the fact that the initial data collection and entry is going to take time to complete. But the work comes in the dividends. I mean, the dividends come in the work. That's what I mean to say, right? And Vita gets that her system sounds a little undoable when you're busy. But, she said that's right there. What you're doing now is not working and it's not sustainable. She doesn't sugarcoat the difficulty of pivoting, but she asks you to step back and consider, what does a real solution look like and what impact will it make on your personal and your work life? Okay. What she's saying is, I'm hearing what you're struggling with and you're crying and you're drowning, but you don't want to just complain, do you? You want to do something about it, right? So here's the solution. Now it's time to make the decision. All right. So Vita walked us through the initial steps in creating a digital workflow, and she'll be back on the podcast to guide us through the remaining pieces of it. All right. So step one is finding a system like Excel or QuickBooks that can partially automate and streamline your data entry, right? If formulas aren't your thing, work with someone who has this superpower and can help you create smart digital estimate templates. This is the type of service that if you have to pay somebody to do for you, this is worth its weight in gold, okay? Because then you do it once and then you're done. You're set up, okay? And then the next step is what you do daily or weekly, okay? Depending on the size of your business. You'll enter the data into your software. This part is crucial, right? This is not where you're saving time. It's where you're spending quality time. Everything that goes into that estimate, leaving no detail out. That's what I heard her say. And this is what creates the rest of the process getting better. Okay. Your PO will include all of those bits and pieces that are needed for the entire execution of the project. Okay. So now I have a question for you. What if you're a one-person team, one person, one window treatment person, right? And you run your business, you do your sales, all the things. Do you really need something as robust and detailed as Vita's system? Well, you probably can answer that for yourself. Have you ever woken up at 3 a.m. and worried that tomorrow's installer doesn't have all the details to get the job done right? Do you stress out about how long it takes to do estimates and the reiterations of those estimates? Did the workroom get something wrong because they didn't have all the information from you? I mean, are these things falling through the cracks and making you look bad to your customer? If you're nodding your head, you need a solid foundational system. And this could be it for you, right? Now, you may also benefit from Exciting Windows, right? If you come to the Exciting Windows conference, you can see who we are, what we are, how we help you run a more profitable window treatment business, okay? And if you come, you're going to get some marketing advice as well. Nicole Heimer is going to be there. She is the one that I lean on for expertise on my website and other marketing endeavors. So we'd love to see you in person if you want to come. Go to excitingwindows.com/ CEO guest. All right. Now, Vita System may seem like a lot, but you already know that you're doing a lot. So let's do it smart, right? Let's do it smart. I have to say that we've been kicking it around at WindowWorks, and my team is going to take Vita's course this coming fall at Lou University, because even though WindowWorks is, the course is scaling to your first million, the number of conversations that I've had with Vita on air and off air about her digital workflow system, I know it will benefit WindowWorks even though we're scaling to 5 million. Because unless you are completely digital, it really doesn't matter if you're trying to get to 1 million or you're, 3.5 million headed to 5. Because in the scaling is when you need these automations and these systems, so that either yourself, if you're a solo, you do grab back some of your personal time so that you can relax and enjoy the benefits of being an entrepreneur, right? Or in the case of a bigger firm like WindowWorks, just getting the information across so many team members. So the course is called Scale to Your First 1 Million, but I know for a fact it's going to be beneficial for many of us. All right, so that's at luannuniversity.com. All right, Vita, love you lots, lady. Thank you so much always for just coming here and being so willing to share all of your secret sauce with us. I really, really appreciate it. Thanks so much for listening. Decide to be excellent. Thank you so much for joining me again today. This podcast is a production of WindowWorks, your resource for custom window treatments and awnings. To learn how we can help you on your next interior design project, go to www.windowworks-nj.com. And if you're interested in working with me on your business, either through masterminds or one-on-one coaching, or you want to know how to get my book, The Making of a Well-Designed Business, or you just want to know what's going on in the podcast land and where I'm going to be, all of that is found at luannigara.com. Thank you so much. Have an excellent day.